What is a fact about the human body that not many people know about? Story 1. There are tiny cilia that spin in a certain direction. If they spin in the opposite direction while you're developing in the womb early on, that is how you get organs transposed onto the opposite side of your body. Story 2. When doing surgery where the doctors have to take out some organs, when placing them back, they don't have to be put back in the exact position they're meant to be. Your body kind of just moves the organs into the correct position after the surgery. Story 3. If you faint at the sight of your own blood, you may have an oversensitive vasovagal response. The theory is that this developed as a survival mechanism, kind of like an opossum playing dead. Story 4. You hate the sound of your recorded voice because it's missing the low frequency you're used to hearing. When you talk, you hear your voice as it goes to the air and back to your ear. It also goes through your skull to your ear, and this bone conduction mechanism transmits the low frequencies better than air does. Your recorded voice only has the air-transmitted sound. That causes the dissonance between what you think your voice sounds like and what it really does. It's also why your voice will almost always be higher pitched than you think. Story 5. There's a right and a wrong way to swallow, and the first swallow pattern you learn isn't the right one. Babies swallow by pushing their whole tongue forward since it's better for nursing. However, as you transition to solid foods, you're supposed to change to a swallow where you put the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth and roll the food back. Not everyone does, and those that don't are more likely to choke, eat too fast, develop dental problems, and some develop a lisp or distorted sounds as they learn to talk. Edit. After seeing many of the comments and other professionals bringing up good ethical points, I feel the need to add some extra info and disclaimers. 1. I did not intend to imply that anyone who feels they swallow wrong based on this information has to get an evaluation therapy. I only wanted to share information I find fascinating, and let those with concerns or fear know that you have the right to seek a professional if you so desire. If I did encourage you, or you felt I did, I only meant to encourage you to feel comfortable seeking out professional advice or assistance. 2. Any techniques or screeners mentioned are only that, and cannot identify a disorder. Only an evaluation with an appropriate professional can do that, and that professional can vary with a variety of factors. 3. If you do try to analyze your swallow, please don't actively try the incorrect swallow. It can potentially be unsafe to try any swallow you're not used to. Please be careful if you decide to disregard this warning, for I did not intend to imply that just because you have any of the aforementioned characteristics that you have the wrong swallow. I did not intend to imply that this type of incorrect swallow is the cause of whatever difficulties, scary moments, etc., you experience. 5. Thank you all for all the interesting stories, questions, comments, and feedback. I hope you enjoyed a little awareness about something most people never think about and found any correlations but not necessarily causations as interesting as I doted. Story 6. Your eyes have a separate immune system from the rest of your body, and in a lot of occasions if your botus immune system finds your eyes, they will assume they are a foreign body and blind you. Story 7. The reason it's so easy to break your collarbone is because it's designed to break. The way it was explained to me is that it's like a circuit breaker. It breaks there to stop the shock of impact getting to your spine. Edit. For all those taking issue with it, designed is just the word I used. I am not trying to argue or implicate the hand of a higher power. I am not going to change it. If I believe in a god or not really has nothing to do with it. It's a discussion about the human body, not religion. You all just need to chill your beans. Who really cares? I don't. Story 8. When you get conditioned to physical activity, your circulatory system adapts. More blood, more vessels, more blood cells, but your lungs really don't. This is because no matter how much blood your heart is able to deliver to your lungs, the lungs still have no problem oxygenating it. This is why your oxygen saturation doesn't drop during exercise unless you have a heart defect. Edit. Thanks to the actual professional in the field, who I quote below, elite endurance athletes can push themselves hard enough to the point of creating noticeable oxygen desaturation during bouts of maximal intensity exercise. This is largely due to 3 factors, the first being the massive venous blood return, the second being large cardiac chamber filling, and the third being high heart rates during this maximal intensity. These elite athletes are able to pump such large volumes of blood per beat that the deoxygenated blood isn't spending enough time in the lungs to become saturated to a typical 96 to 98. Story 9. Humans have stripes, we just normally can't see them. They're called Blaschko's lines and form along the paths of embryonic cell migration. The stripes are sort of U-shaped down our front, V-shaped on our back, wavy on the head and face, and we have basic, simple stripes on our extremities. Story 10. Your brain regulates how strong your muscles are. If your leg muscles were to contract at full strength, they would snap your femur. It's why people in emergencies on adrenaline can lift cars off children. Your body is capable of great strength, but it could also severely damage you, so your brain keeps you a weak, soft bag of jelly. Story 11. Your stomach is surrounded by more brain cells, 500 million neurons, than the brain of a cat contains in total. It's your enteric nervous system. It controls digestion, operates autonomously, has its own memory, can handle its own reflexes, it has its own senses even. It's thought to have come about because of the blood-brain barrier and the main brain being locked away in the skull, a spinal column and nerves away from the critical action of nutrition. Story 12. In theory, humans could breathe a liquid if it was supersaturated with oxygen. It wouldn't be easy because the density of liquid being so much higher than air, so after 15 minutes or so you would be too fatigued to continue breathing. The hardest part is getting all the liquid out of the lungs so the person doesn't get pneumonia. Story 13. The eyeball is the fastest healing part on your body. Edit. Let me put it in a simpler version if you don't believe me. The eyeball has a cornea. Now, cutting the cornea will result in much pain, but since this part doesn't contain blood, but only gets a supply of oxygen, it is the only fastest healing part of your body that can heal in only 24 to 36 hours. Believe me now. Story 14. You will sooner die from lack of sleep than lack of food. You can live, depending on your current body fat and health level, for months without food. Estimates are that you will die for lack of sleep within 2 weeks. Story 15. Apparently about 20 of people have a bony ridge on the roof of their mouth. Most people's palates are smooth with a very slight ridge. The 20 like me have an exaggerated and more pronounced ridge. Apparently it's most common in women and Asian folk, and am neither, so that's neat. I always thought it was totally normal. Story 16. 39 of people have an extra bone in their knee. 100 years ago, only 11 of people had this bone. Story 17. You can live normally with half your brain. In some severe drug-resistant epileptic syndrome in young kids, the only option to stop the seizures is to remove a complete brain hemisphere. After a while, with proper re-education and all, the children can go on to have a normal life without cognitive deficit. They will have a limping, blindness from one eye and a very weak arm, but can lead a normal life and not end up cognitively impaired. One of the earliest signs of Alzheimer's disease, before the memory loss, could be the loss of the sense of smell. It's also the case with Parkinson's disease. Our brain looks wrinkled because it is actually folded inside our skull in order to fit a maximum of surface and thus neuron cell communications. Some animals like rodents have a completely smooth brain. Story 18. The average human erection has roughly about 130 milliliters of blood in it, while the average rabbit has about 126 milliliters in its entire body. So, there is more blood in a than in a bunny. Story 19. X-rays of children's mouths are nightmare fuel. The second set of teeth to replace baby teeth are already grown and lodged in their skulls, so you'll see 2 rows of teeth and it's freaky looking. They don't grow in when the old ones fall out. They are already loaded in the chamber waiting to get launched. Story 20. Humans are one of a few species of mammal that oddly don't produce their own vitamin C due to lack of a certain enzyme. Other mammalian species who exhibit this mutation are those contained in the main primate suborder Haplorini monkeys, apes, tarsiers, as well as bats, capybaras, and guinea pigs. All other mammals produce vitamin C in the liver. Story 21. Your body will reduce your muscle strength to protect your spine. Stand on flat ground, hold your arms out in a T-pose, and have a friend push down on your hand while you try to hold it in place. That's your control, how strong you actually are. Now remove one shoe or put a book under one foot and repeat with your hips askew so your spine isn't straight. An inch is all it takes. Your strength will be reduced to the point that your friend can use a single finger to push your hand down. Story 22. Your brain likes stimulation. If it doesn't get any, it will make some up. Some people are more susceptible to it than others. The colors you see before you fall asleep are a common mild occurrence. There are several classes of these hallucinations. Closed-eye visuals, which are caused by leaving your eyes closed for a long time. Hypnagogia, which is caused by the onset of sleep. Prisoner cinema, which is caused by looking into a dark place for a long time. Ganzfeld effect, which is caused by blocking out all external stimuli. And Charles Bonnet syndrome, caused by sight loss. Most of these are simple phosphenes, but some can be whole imagined scenes, or more abstract fractal-like imagery. Story 23. People who live in extreme conditions for generations adapt in extreme ways. For example, people that live in high elevations often have larger lungs and different blood makeup. Or my favorite is the Bajau people that live on the water and spend a lot of their time diving. Their spleens have become 50 larger in order to store more blood. Story 24. Touch between your eyes, then push up with your tongue of roof of your mouth. You can barely feel a bone move. If you do this while your nose is stuffed, it will make it drain about a minute later. Story 25. One of the things that make humans unique from other animals is the fact that there is no actual bone in human boners. All other apes have them, although they are reduced in size, and most other mammals do too, notable exception being rats. Edit. Rats have rabbits don't. We don't know exactly why we are missing this bone called a baculum. The best theory I've seen is that without an actual bone, only relatively healthy male humans can. Story 26. Most reflexes never make it to your brain. The sensory aspect travels to the spinal cord, and the spinal cord itself sends the muscle movement signals to your limbs. Story 27. You can out of your mouth if your intestines get backed up enough. It's like vomit, doesn't look like actual per se, but it's still fucking disgusting. Story 28. Babies can break their collarbone during delivery. It happens quite often, but heals quickly. My teacher told me that if it happened to you OFC, you may feel a slightly higher spot on your collarbone, called the callus, where the fracture grew back together. Story 29. Mitochondria, the powerhouses of our cells according to every high school bio teacher, are just bacteria that permanently set up shop in our cells millions and millions of years ago. The heart can generate its own electrical impulses, i.e., action potentials, because it is constantly depolarizing. That's why a heart will continue beating even after it's removed from the body. Story 30. When you have a bowel movement, your heart rhythm shifts temporarily due to a vagus response. The reason Elvis died on the toilet was because his heart was beating 200 BPM and the quick rhythm change caused a myocardial infarction. People with low heart rates have been known to pass out on the toilet because their bodies can't handle the shift. It's also why EMTs will absolutely not let you use the bathroom before getting on the ambulance, especially if the bathroom is a standard 5 by 8. Story 31. If you squirt cold water into someone's ear with a syringe, their eyes will automatically turn to the side that you squirted the water. If you use warm water, their eyes will automatically turn to the other side. Story 32. Your brain continues to try to revive the body long after the heart has stopped. In some cases 30 hours later there has been found brain activity trying to make repairs to bring the body back. This is used to indicate time of death in murder victims. Edit upon research. I should clarify, the brain survives after the heart stops for several minutes. However, electroencephalomagnetic EEG brain activity continues for not only 30 hours but in some cases up to 72 hours after brain death. The link for the information is here. Story 33. The human body typically only uses 30 of its muscle strength. The only times where your body will activate full power is when it's life or death. The cost of full muscle power is torn muscles, broken bone, stress, and in some cases, lacerations. Story 34. Humans are bioluminescent and glow in the dark, but the light that we emit is 1,000 times weaker than our human eyes are able to pick up. Source. Story 35. Positive blood type women can have positive and negative blood type babies without issue. Negative blood type women require a shot with antibodies to prevent the mother's immune system from attacking the fetus if it is a positive blood type. Story 36. That there is not 20 pounds of toxic in your body at any given time. Those ads, but apparently a ton of people still believe all sorts of ads about some pill or another being able to flush some imaginary toxins out of your body like it's going to magically cure you of 20 years of terrible eating and exercise habits. Our bodies have the ability to perform their own bypass procedures. My grandfather went in for a scan and it showed a 100 blockage in one of his major arteries. The image also showed a new portion of the artery starting, 25 before the blockage and then rejoining the artery, 25 after the blockage, completely bypassing the obstructed portion. He had never had surgery before this discovery. Story 37. We have a fifth valve in our hearts that seals up right after we're born. Apparently anything similar to that afterwards is a huge surgical procedure. The human body is amazing. Story 38. The appendix is not a vestigial organ. It actually protects good bacteria in the gut. You can live without it, but it's not just chillin' in there. Edited to add that this is relatively new research. Also, I'm not a doctor or anything, just an avid podcast listener who recently learned this on Stuff You Should Know. Story 39. People believe in all this detox cleanse stuff and are putting things in their body that are not needed. Your liver is what naturally detoxifies your body. TLDR, detox cleanses are like putting a hat on a hat. Story 40. It is possible to skewer a person from crotch to crown with a wooden pole without immediately killing them. In fact, with proper care and experience, it is possible to do it so that they live for a day or two. Story 41. You can remember how many muscles there are in human arm with the number 420. Usually there are 4 muscles in the upper arm and 20 in the lower arm, but some people have only 19 muscles and are missing the palmaris longus. You can see if you have it by bringing your fingertips together. If you have it, you'll clearly see a small tendon in your inner wrist right below your palm. Story 42. Humans form their digestive tract first of all the organs, starting from the anus. So everyone was once just in a holy update. Apparently this is no longer the case, but we didn't cover that particular detail when I took human development for some reason. Leaving for context of the comments, but would be more accurate to say our distant ancestors were all a holies at some point. Evolution is very weird. So instead of evolving scale sarmaret, humans mostly just evolved to still be squishy with easily punctured skin, and develop redundant or duplicate organs. You can lose several feet of your intestines and be fine. You only need 1 working kidney and 1 working lung. Your liver regrows, the heart can beat on its own, and you only need half your brain if it is removed early enough in life. There's minimal to no deficits. A kidney donor has 1 kidney, but a kidney recipient typically has 3. It's usually safer to just graft in the new kidney than to remove the old, assuming the old isn't dying infected and just stopped working. Most mothers are chimeras due to some fetal cells crossing the placenta. The cells can lodge and survive in the mother's body with no adverse effects. Speaking of chimeras, a woman once failed a maternity test. Despite giving birth to her kids, turns out she was a chimera from 2 zygotes that fused, and her reproductive tract was from the absorbed twin and had different DNA than the cells in her cheek where the test sample was taken. Only cells collected from her reproductive tract matched her children. Story 43. You can calm yourself down by splashing cold water on your face to trigger the mammalian diving reflex. Story 44. The sensation of suffocating isn't caused by the thing that actually kills you. You'll die from a lack of oxygen, but the feeling of suffocation is the result of being unable to exhale carbon dioxide. So if you started breathing in pure nitrogen while being able to exhale normally, you would pass out and die without ever feeling like you were suffocating. This also explains why some languages call nitrogen something like suffocation gas. Story 45. The reason it feels weird when you or someone touches the inside of your belly button is because the nerves actually go to your spinal cord. These nerves lie at the same level that relay signals to your urethra and bladder, so when you feel like you have to pee when you touch the inside of your belly button, that's why. I feel like my comment may go unseen. I'm always late to these interesting AskReddits that I actually know facts about. Anyway reader, how are ya? How has this last year went for you? Edit. I can't see who sent the awards, but you're so kind. Thank you, big hugs to you all. Story 46. I have a few. There is 6 feet of DNA inside every nucleated cell. I say nucleated because red blood cells have no nucleus. Speaking of red blood cells, 85 of all of your cells are red blood cells. Your bone marrow pumps out about 2 per million every second. Each red blood cell contains about 270 million hemoglobin molecules. Each hemoglobin molecule can carry 4 molecules of O2. It takes about 60 seconds for a blood cell to completely circulate your entire body. Every 7 years, every cell in your body will have completely replaced itself. Different cells divide at different rates, however. You need a new stomach lining weekly and a new skeleton every 7 years. Edit. I guess the above isn't exactly true. I just heard it before somewhere. A few types of cells are not replaced over time. Every square inch of your skin is covered in bacteria. Your eyes, your mouth, esophagus, airways, most of your digestive tract, teeming with bacteria. There are supposedly 10 times the number of bacteria in you as your actual cells. Story 47. Infants are born with approximately 300 bones, but as they grow some of these bones fuse together. By the time they reach adulthood, they only have 206 bones, and teeth are considered part of the skeletal system, but are not counted as bones. Story 48. The human genome is about 8 virus DNA. Over millions of years, various sequences of virus genes have gotten stuck in our DNA and copied faithfully ever since. Most of them are now non-functional, but at least a few of them seem to still work and actually code for useful proteins. This suggests that viruses might occasionally serve as a helpful source of mutation in the evolutionary process. Story 49. We all have a major artery called the ascending aortic artery that runs down the center of our abdomen. Another artery, called the superior mesenteric artery, branches off of that. There is a gap between the arteries that is kept open by a pad of fat, and the start of our intestines, called the duodenum, passes right through the gap between the two arteries. Very rarely something can happen to shrink the fat pad, and then the arteries act like a clamp and pinch the duodenum closed. This prevents anything solid or liquid from passing from the stomach into the intestines. This is called superior mesenteric artery syndrome. And I had it. It is so rare that it took 2 months of doctors excluding everything else for them to diagnose me. I couldn't keep anything down, and went from 120 to 90 pounds. I had to have where my intestines were connected to my stomach moved to another spot, and have about 6 feet removed in the process. This was almost 7 years ago now, other than having to eat more than I used to in order to maintain my weight. I'm okay. That is only one of the weird and very rare medical conditions that I'm living with, but you'd never know by looking at me. Story 50. Women, though in rare extreme cases, can from their vagina. There's a membrane that separates intestines from the uterus, and it can break in cases of long-term constipation. It happened to granny of my best friend, and it is a nasty thing. Story 51. Regarding goosebumps and getting plucked. Goosebumps were named after geese because goose feathers grow from the stores in the epidermis, which are like human follicles. The goose's skin gets protrusions after the feathers have been plucked out, which resembles the human phenomenon. Story 52. Everyone rags on the human body for being lame in the animal kingdom. It isn't true. We didn't win the world by being slouches in the physical department. Human beings are megafauna to be reckoned with. We are the best in the world at throwing, and it isn't even remotely close. Orangutans can hardly throw something 10 feet, and it's not accurate. We can nail a fleeing animal in the heart at 50 yards with a sharp stick and a strap of leather. We are in the top 5 endurance runners. In the heat of the day, only ostriches and camels beat us out. Humans can run all day long, like really all day. If you had to survive, you could run after prey for 10 hours. Your ancestors did it. And here you are. Human beings have very high upper body strength. All that about chimps being able to rip your arms out, it's bullshit. The average adult could absolutely destroy a lot of the other megafauna on Earth. You have a very powerful grasping appendage, unusually strong legs, and the dexterity and know-how to destroy a target's eyes and throat. The ability of human beings to lift and push is unique among animals. No other megafauna can lift and push as much as a human being with its grasping appendage, relative to body size, of course. Did you know that multiple people have single-handedly defeated bears, cougars, and wolves with their bare hands? Our eyesight is incredibly good, able to discern fine detail at a distance that allows most other animals to only see a vague blur. We are predators with binocular vision, and these things are pricey. We are sturdy, really sturdy. Injuries that would doom another animal are survivable for people. We are fairly resistant to toxins, can heal broken bones fairly easily, and restore major skin damage. Our digestive system is among the best in the world. For fuck's sake, we literally seek out and eat plants that ungulates with 4 stomach chambers wouldn't go near. We can eat practically anything. Story 53. Alzheimer's disease isn't just gradual loss of memory. It physically exists in the brain. It's a physical plaque substance that attacks the brain. Like if you were able to open the skull of a person suffering from Alzheimer's disease to take a look at their brain, you would actually see this sticky, fibrous, gray physical matter overtaking their brain. It'll add that some people even say it has an odor. My mother was a hairdresser for 30 years before deciding to open a wig salon for chemo patients. For a few of those 30 years, she worked as a hairdresser for elderly people living in a residential Alzheimer's facility, which made for a couple of truly terrifying instances when my little sister and I went to work with our mom in the summertime as young kids. These 2 ladies chased us around the halls thinking we were their grandkids, saying they wanted to take us to the zoo, but that's a different story. Ooh, anyway, from working that job and being in close facial proximity to the heads and scalps of Alzheimer's patients, my mother to this day swears up and down that you can absolutely smell Alzheimer's disease. I realize that this could just be my mom's subjective opinion that isn't necessarily corroborated by science, but she swears it's true. Story 54. Oh man, I love like this. 1. The proportion of your vision that is actually in sharp focus roughly equates to the size of your thumbnail at arm's length. The rest of it is just your visual cortex filling in the blanks. 2. Scars are not made of permanent tissue, they're held together by collagen, and are in a constant state of repair. This repair is facilitated by vitamin C amongst other things. Yes, this means that people with scurvy from vitamin C deficiency will see all their old scars reopen into fresh wounds. 3. Pineapple contains bromelain, an enzyme that ingests proteins. Your meat parts are mostly made of proteins, so when you're eating pineapple, it's also eating you. Story 55. The average number of skeletons within a human body is more than 1. Due to pregnancies, when women have 2 or more skeletons inside their body, and there are to my knowledge no humans without a skeleton. Story 56. Got a few. The moment the meets the egg, there's a zinc spark at 250 miles per hour collision, which is pretty much what CERN are trying to mimic at the LHC. At any given time our body has a load of cancer cells. Through autophagy we can clean up ourselves at a cellular level and eat the cancer. Fat doesn't normally increase in volume, but instead the cells just increase in size. The body is weird. Story 57. In children under 11, for some reason, cutting off the fingertip from the last knuckle will result in complete regeneration of the finger in 100 of cases. Assuming the nail is intact, there's no explanation for why this happens, why it only happens to children under 11, and why it can't be sequences to fully regenerate grow organs. It also occurs in many animals, as observed in test rodents. I learned that in science class in grade 8 and my dad called me a liar. I showed him my science textbook and he threw it away and said it was fake. Story 58. Your body must warm fluids before absorbing them, so drinking ice-cold water to hydrate is only burning more energy, and you're not hydrating as quickly. Story 59. When losing weight, fat isn't lost through heat or sweating. Nearly all fat is lost through simple breathing. If you lose 10 kilograms of fat, precisely 8 kilograms comes out through your lungs and the remaining 6 kilograms turns into water. Story 60. When you're exercising and start feeling exhausted, you still have 99 of your energy left. Your body is just trying to point out that you can't keep this up forever. Story 61. In early development of a fetus, everyone starts out female, then some turn into male later on. That's why males have nipple for no reason. Also, your is the first part of your body that develops, according to the replies. Learn something every day. That reminds me, the cells your is made out of are the same cells that make your lips. I'm sure most people probably know that, but I thought it was interesting. Edit. Apparently this information is slightly misleading. Please read the reply by Urasina Commando. Story 62. Every woman who has been pregnant carries the stem cells of that child for the rest of her life, regardless if it is carried to term aborted miscarried. Story 63. In the movie Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Lecter made a medical joke. His infamous quote, "I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti." Hannibal Lecter could be treated with drugs called monoamine oxidase inhibitors MAOIs, and since he was a psychiatrist, Lecter knows what he's doing. The 3 things you can't eat with MAOIs, liver, beans, and wine. Hannibal is making a joke referencing the fact that he's not taking his meds. It's a cool fact to me. Psychology major, nursing student, and future psychiatric nurse. Story 64. It only takes about 8 pounds of force 36N to tear off a human ear. The average human can safely pull up to around 30 of their body weight. For an average male of 200 pounds that would be 60 pounds and more than 7x the required force for manual ear removal. Story 65. Your body weight in kilograms is the amount of calories you burn in an hour while not doing anything. During hard exercise, you can burn up to 10 times as much. Story 66. Holding the edges of your eyes that connect to the nose prevents you from sneezing. What it's specifically called, but the corners of your eyes closest to your nose. I don't remember how I found this out. I think I noticed shutting my eyes hard helped me stop sneezing, and so did rubbing my eyes. Noticed the inner corners worked best, and tried holding them firmly, worked ever since. Story 67. You can die from eating too much after a long period of malnourishment. This is called refeeding syndrome, and as an example, if you're underweight 60 of your ideal BMI and binge on 40 cookies within 12 hours, the sugar 1,200 grams will stimulate your pancreas and release massive doses of insulin, which will decrease your blood sugar and electrolytes in your blood from before you started eating and possibly cause a seizure and/or heart failure. Story 68. Precordial catch syndrome. If you've ever had a sudden lightning bolt of pain in your chest that feels like being stabbed by it might be this. It's just a nerve getting caught on something and twanging like a guitar string, but it's debilitatingly painful. When it happens to me, it only lasts a few seconds, but I've read it can last for much, much longer. We can hold our breath for over 20 minutes with training. It's mind-boggling to me. World record is 25 minutes. Story 69. You have a big flab of tissue that hangs down from under your stomach which covers your intestines. It's called the greater omentum. It's almost always removed in any basic anatomy drawing, so most people don't know its existence. It stores quite a bit of fat, but it carries out some unusual roles. In an abdomen infection, it sometimes can wrap itself around it. hence giving it the nickname the policeman of the abdomen. Story 70. It's been a while since I learned this from a nurse, so the exact details are fuzzy, but here goes. If a breastfeeding mother eats too much chocolate, something in the chocolate gets changed when her body creates milk. Subsequently, when the baby drinks said chocolate milk, the baby will have turquoise-colored. Apparently it's a phenomenon that causes numerous hospital visits for babies every year around Easter LOL, but it's completely harmless to the baby. Story 7195. Of the sensory fibers in the human ear are used to transmit sound. Until recently, the function of the other 5 of fibers were not known. We now know that under certain conditions, these remaining fibers can become sensitized, leading to a rare condition known as hyperacusis, where everyday sounds cause the sufferer immense pain. It is debilitating and often leads to people giving up their careers, relationships and homes, isolating themselves indefinitely in sound-insulated rooms. Source: I am one of these people. Story 72. People who have periods have something called period shits. Generally right before menstruation there's a huge fluctuation in the hormones progesterone and estrogen. This causes a lot of people to become constipated, causing a backup. Progesterone is then released to cause uterine contractions, which causes the membrane on the uterus to loosen. Problem is that progesterone isn't super accurate, and can wander to other parts of the lower GI tract. This causes super fun and not at all painful contractions of the bowels, and movement of the feces which is built up. The result can be a very large, sometimes loose pile in the toilet that doesn't always flush on the first go. There is also period blood which usually goes along with it, so it gives a nice tinge of red to your stool. I've been held up in the bathroom for 15 before just consistently shitting. You feel like you've lost 10 pounds and a year off your life by the end. Story 73. Breastfed babies can go beyond 10 days without pooping because their bodies can utilize nearly all of the milk they receive and produce no waste. This does not apply to artificial breast milk like baby formula. Moral of the story: new parents, please don't load your babies up with laxatives if they are exclusively breastfed and not pooping. It's normal. Story 74. Giving A is best in the first 20 minutes after waking because you have little or no gag reflex. You can die from a bullet to the leg due to hydrostatic shock. Your body is made up of 60 water, and water is incompressible. So, if a bullet penetrates your body at very high speed from a good rifle, for example, the water in your body will travel so fast that your body may go into hydrostatic shock. That shock can kill you. Story 75. On average, your body creates a cell every 30 minutes or so that would become cancerous, and likely lethal. We also kill off the cell in most cases before any action takes place. So yes, the cancer that will kill you could have formed in the last half an hour. Story 76. Your tendons have a natural lubricant called synovial fluid. This stuff gets affected by certain PEDs, which is how athletes and competitors rip their tendons training. What's cool is that under a microscope they look like spooky spiderwebs. Story 77. You're not the first to reach the egg. In fact, that reached the egg that became you arrived purely on statistical chance. For all the sperms that made it past the acidic pool of fun inside the vagina, and for all the sperms that can swim straight, the fastest sperms to reach the egg are the first to try find a crack in the shell and often kill themselves in that effort to break through. In fact, of the millions of sperms trying to get through, you're middle of the pack at best that just got lucky to win the spermical lottery by finding the crack and slipping through first to fertilize the egg before everybody else did. Story 78. Yours longer than you think. To scientifically measure your penis means you must push a ruler down on the side of the penis until you hit the pubic bone. In other words, if you think yours is 4 inches, it is probably 6 inches. Story 79. First, the LCL and MCL are not cruciate ligaments, they're collateral ligaments. Sportscasters always get that one wrong, probably because the ACL is the one that is most commonly severely injured, and it is a cruciate ligament. Second, ligament damage to the knee isn't honestly that bad in and of itself. The reason those ligaments are important is because they protect the meniscus, a special bit of cartilage between the upper and lower leg. If that gets damaged, then you start to feel pain, and eventually will be grinding bone on bone, which is painful. While tearing your ACL or other knee ligaments hurts, if the meniscus isn't damaged in the same injury, you could probably walk on it the next day, albeit somewhat gingerly, as long as the terrain is pretty tame. The reason the recovery period is so long is because it usually involves surgery and rehab again, in order to protect the meniscus.